Lord Davies, you're Deputy Chief Whip in the House of Lords. You've also served as a Whip in the House of Commons. What's the difference between whipping in the two chambers?
Oh, intensity at the other end, as we call the House of Commons, as votes count there. After all, I was involved in the famous vote in 1979 where the government lost by one, and the vote in Parliament brought down the government. And of course there are other votes which may not be as monumental as that, but they're of huge significance to the progress of legislation. In the Lords, votes on issues are of much lower significance because the House of Lords is a revising chamber, not a chamber which determines the fate of governments. But nevertheless, pride is at stake in the Whip's office to get see that the government's record is adequately defended here. So I work quite hard as Deputy Chief Whip also on significant votes.
Can the House of Lords actually hold up or even throw out business from the House of Commons?
It can't really reject business for which the government's got a mandate from the electorate. And of course the House of Lords is scrupulous about observing that. But it can certainly delay legislation, and in delaying legislation at times on the government throws in the towel because it's taking too much parliamentary time to deal with that particular measure. So the Lords is a bit more than a revising chamber, it's a delaying chamber, and on fairly insignificant occasions it could even be described as in specific instances of having been a wrecking chamber, but I wouldn't want to exaggerate that position. It doesn't happen too often.
Members of the House of Lords aren't open for re-election, they serve for life. So how do you persuade members to turn up and vote?
With difficulty is the answer, and trading on loyalties. They've when they come to the House, and take the Labour whip, they arrive here on the basis that their job is to support the party in the Lords. That can wear off over time, and sometimes it can wear off in a very short number of months indeed. But there is a basic loyalty to the party, and also there's a recognition that supporters of the governing party have a greater respect for the Commons, because the Commons, of course, is a reflection of the government majority in that House, and as a consequence, they don't want to see measures which have achieved a majority in the elected House lost because the House of Lords fails to do its duty.
I refer to you as the Deputy Chief Whip in the House of Lords, but your full title is the Captain of the Royal Bodyguard of the Yeomen of the Guard. What does that involve?
Well, not a great deal. It's ceremonial, and it reflects the fact that way back in the 18th century the King made sure that there were people in the House of Lords who got the King's will followed in terms of necessary support in the Lords. That position still holds. I'm a member of the royal household, and that role is, as you say, Captain of the Bodyguard. It's wholly ceremonial. On the opening of Parliament and on the visits of heads of state, I'm on parade with key figures of the royal household, so I get the chance to meet briefly past President of the United States, President of India, heads of President of Mexico, interesting heads of state who come to this country on state visits. So it's a real privilege, but I can't pretend that it's anything else except intensely ceremonial, but really rather enjoyable.
Thank you, Lord Davies.
Thank you.